The last step in this project is trying to do something with the glass. This is reverse painted. We've got solid colors. This is gold leaf, and you can see the condition of this one is pretty poor in the black area. This is just flaking off with touch in some places. And the colored red is not horrifically terrible, but it's not great. The good news is this isn't a painting. This is just solid colors. So I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is way outside my field of expertise. I have gone to an art store and have gotten some advice on maybe what they used, and they suggested oil paints. So I have a variety of colors here that I'm going to play with. And rather than showing you my stumbles, I'm going to do all of this off camera and just see what happens, and I'm going to report back. I don't claim to be an expert on this, really don't have the skills to probably share with anyone else, and this is just a project log rather than a how-to video anyway. So it's going to be what it's going to be, but we'll see how this goes, and I'll tell you what worked and what I struggled with, and we'll look together to see what the result was. Well, it didn't take long. I'm going to show you my first color test, and I'm actually really excited about how this turned out. I just did a dab of the black that I purchased, and then one of the colors that seemed close was this Gamblin India Red, and that is this dot right here. And if we look at what that did, here's our new dot. That seems really close. I'm really thrilled about that. And here's our new black daub, which I think is going to be just fine. So the steps that I'm planning to take here, I'm going to use some alcohol, and I'm going to get rid of all of the black outside of the gold leaf boundary. There's a lot written about Sol-UV and other different kinds of ways to preserve the paint that's here. I am going to just go through and carefully pick out all of the loose paint here and then fill it with the red. I did actually buy some synthetic gold leaf to see if maybe it would make sense to fill in some of the little chips in the gold. So again, that's an experiment, but I will say that I'm really happy with the color choices here. This Gamblin Ivory Black and India Red. I want to catch you up to what I've done so far here. I have cleaned the glass using a combination of lacquer thinner and alcohol. Lacquer thinner absolutely dissolves this paint. So if you do this, this is one thing I am sure of. Keep the lacquer thinner far from the paint you want to keep. I used it to get rid of a bunch of residual paint on the edges. And actually on the front side, when this was painted silver and then stripped, there was a bunch of silver paint gunk that was on the edge of the glass on the front side. So lacquer thinner took care of that, and actually you can still see some slimes on the front side that I need to wipe off eventually here. But the black area is pretty clean, and I'm getting ready to paint it. And one of the things that I wanted to see what I could do is to touch up the gold leaf. Now this is actual gold leaf that was originally done. You can still get that. There's a great guy on the YouTube that's a Happy Gilder, and I've watched some of his videos and they're fantastic. I took some things away, but please don't blame him for my poor application of the process of what I did here. But just to try to fill in some of the gaps here, and this being a minor detail, I picked up, this is imitation leaf. This is not real gold. It's some kind of copper aluminum thing that looks goldish, and I got just the sizing that the art supply store had. This is not what I've seen real gilders use, so take that under advisement. But I did try a little piece of that right here. It is a little bit of a different color than the original gold. I think it's going to be one of those details that's going to blend in with the clock and nobody will ever notice it. So I am going to carry ahead with this. You can see the leaf is a little thin in some places, and there's some scratch marks from the clock living its life. This does work well enough, I think, for our purpose. If I was more confident in the process and thought I would do more of this, I might have invested in real gold leaf, which would have probably been a little bit better color match. But I think it's okay. So my order of operations here, I went through and I tried to loosen everything that was hanging off. In some of this colored area here, there were some bubbles that the paint was still intact there, but I'm so happy with my color match with this this India Red that I think the result will be better if I just go ahead and pick off anything loose and then repaint. So I'm about ready to do the red. Now this has one detail which is a little bit of a challenge, and that is there's this tiny thin black line between the red and the gold leaf. To be totally honest, I don't know how that's going to come out. I'm going to do my best to paint only up to that line around the perimeter here. This top side, I don't have much of a reference, and I can't use any sort of tape as a guide because that'll peel off way more than would be okay. So I'm going to just eyeball this and we'll see how it goes. Again, not a visual artist in this kind of way. We're just going to see what I can pull off with the products at hand. I'm using a very small brush with the sizing here, and I'm just putting the very tip in, and I am being careful to keep the sizing within the border of the existing gold leaf. And the reason for that is I don't want to have to try to worry about the border of this. And the gold leaf will only stick where the sizing is present. So if I can keep the sizing only where I want it, after I apply the gold leaf, just by brushing it with a brush, I can get rid of the excess leaf. Sizing is dry, so I've got a little strip of the leaf here. I'm going to just try to line this up as best I can. And then as I pull it off the backing paper, I can take a Q-tip and just dab it on to stick where I need it. And then the excess just kind of flakes away. There it goes. Well, that looks really good. That is an absolutely perfect paint match. Just a quick check-in. The main field of color I'm thrilled with. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the red line inside the gilding, which I knew I would have trouble with, but I will deal with it as I go. I'm working on the black on the outside. You have to put oil paint on fairly thick, and this takes a very long time to dry. And the timeline of when I need this clock done by will affect how I have to do this, so I need to get the black on before the red is cured, and I'll have to kind of go back, fill in between the red and the gilding at some point in the future. This light helps me see through, see where the paint is thin, and I'm going and making sure I have good coverage on that. But this is going really well. Color match is absolutely fantastic, so I'm really excited. I think this is going to turn out really great. Here's our finished assembly. I discovered a mystery and actually got some input from some colleagues on this, and we can't figure out what the deal is. Basically, this piece here, which is made exactly the same way as the one on my original Howard 70, does not allow enough clearance for the pendulum bob and the rating nut, and therefore you can't actually grab it like this. And I've seen several Howards that seem to have this problem. And honestly, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if the bob and the rating nut were removed and then this just held the stick. But my solution to that is I have just machined a couple little washers, and I'm going to attach this by just mounting it to the pendulum. And then I'm going to mark the backboard and then pre-drill a couple tiny holes for the screws. You'll forgive me for the modern screws here. I will try to replace those someday if I can find slotted screws, but for now this is going to work. So we'll get that on. Well, folks, I think it's time to finish this one up. We've got our refinishing done and our glass painting done, as well as the brass work, the pendulum bracket, and the clock hanger. I built a stand to display this for our clock meeting, and I think that's going to work out pretty well too. A little bit of a funny CNC router project, but I think adds a nice touch to be able to bring the clock to the meeting. So anyway, we're going to wrap this one up. Thanks for watching.